Wait, I'm not. Hold on, sorry, is that speaker?
I don't know. Is it on? How do I tell?
For all the evidence. Cause it didn't say recording.
Show her ready to go. She stand on.
No, I was looking at the, wait, it looks like it did last time.
All right. I call this meeting to order. Please rise and pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Thompson,
Here.
Mrs. Moore, here, Mr. Gray,
Here.
Mr. Bittner, Ms. Wong, Mr. Lunder,
Here.
Mr. Johnson.
Here. Approval of the minutes from the regular meeting of council, September 10th, 2024. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes?
Motion for passage?
Motion made by Mrs. Moore, seconded by Mr. Gray. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Thompson.
Aye.
Mrs. Moore. Aye. Mr. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Lunder.
Aye.
Mr. Johnson.
Aye. Correspondence. Clerk, is there any correspondence this evening?
I don't.
Does any member of council have correspondence this evening? Hearing none, we'll move on to administration and department head reports. Mayor and Safety Director, Mayor Eva, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Johnson, members of council, the public here this evening. Start off with, I got a new gavel for you. This is from John Fleshner for our 100th anniversary. So I'll give you that afterwards. In your mailboxes, you've had an invitation for the Yacht Club 100-year celebration on October 19th. It'll start at 6 o'clock. Dinner is at 7. The menus also in your mailbox, and beer and wine will be included. I also have 2 people from our library branch coming to talk about the history of our thing. So that's that. The envision, the comprehensive plan public meeting, we've scheduled for Thursday, November 21st at 6:30. Also, the next envision steering committee meeting is going to be Thursday, November 7th at 7 p.m. As far as the legislation before council tonight, hopefully we can have a discussion about the short-term rentals and the lodging tax. I'd like to just understand how all that came about and how we can go about enforcing that. That concludes my report.
Administrative Director, Ms. Martin, good evening.
So the codified ordinance books and online resources is updated to reflect the current council administration contacts. Our secretary, Kenny Ice, is working diligently to properly update all 23 books located in and around the city, as it hasn't been done since 2022, so she's working really hard at that. And if anyone on council would like additional copies, please send to people. I would like to ask council to address the December 24th council meeting. We've been receiving phone calls asking whether or not really. Ordinance 2421 was added this week. Funds 216 and 225 are grants that are issued to the fire department like the middle of the year. 228 has there's been some additional opioid settlements this year that the police would like to use for drug disposal. And the 700 fund is what we use for holding on to money that we need to be issued at a later date, such as the investment. And then last week during the reading of the service committee meetings, an approval for increasing the petty cash from 100 to 300 was brought up. And as Director of Finance, this really did catch me by surprise, because I haven't made any requests to increase the petty cash, and the service hadn't made any requests to increase it. Because petty cash is supposed to be a nominal amount of money for minor incidental expenses. It is a quick way to reimburse an employee, but is also a fund that is vulnerable to misuse. Unlike our other processes, petty cash purchases are made without prior approval. Abuse or misuse can only be corrected after the cash has been exchanged, Therefore, I recommend keeping the petty cash as is without any increase in spending requirement. And then lastly, I would like to report the approximate 130 leftover hot dogs that were purchased for the family centennial event can no longer be served to the public. The leftover hot dogs needed to be frozen within 2 weeks of purchase, and they were not. So I just want to say that, lesson learned, that if we have anything left over, anything that's been purchased by the city, like, belongs to the city and should be, returned to the city so we can ensure property.
Okay, thank you. Law Director, Mr. Lyons, good evening.
Good evening. President. I'm still getting used to new rules of getting legislation to council, so I apologize one and all for not getting resolution to council. I did send it out yesterday. I don't know if it's gonna go on the agenda. I did try to word it carefully so that it made clear that any RFP that's issued would just be supplement to what the administration has already been working on, just to provide additional information. Ultimately, the website has to be run by the administration and ultimate decision on what vendor to pick. But I think that the city always done a great job with the administration, council, to work collaboratively in order to increase the knowledge of both the administration and council. So I hope that the way I drafted that met the approval of council. It's clear, just kind of not where lines are, but kind of clear that there are roles that council has, roles that the administration has, and in order to ultimately have an effective government, so that people know their roles, we have to stay pretty close to those. So that's my report, and I'm gonna write a note to myself to get Taylor's stuff by high noon on Wednesday, okay, is what I'm gonna try to do. But I do have a backup plan that I arranged, with the president and the vice president that may give me access to Taylor's agenda so that I could add something at the last minute, only on special occasions. So thank you. So.
All right, questions for the administration department heads? Anyone? Hearing none, we'll move on to board committee commissioner reports. Envision Steering Committee.
Yes, the committee met on Thursday, September 12th. Envision Group had sent out a steering committee agenda for our meeting. It was a very long meeting. We had great discussion. Some of the PowerPoints we went through listed when we would have our steering committee meetings, when we would have our public virtual forum meetings, how we would engage with the public and stakeholders of the meetings. We identified some development tasks, and we went through our stages of how our outlook is going to be. Some of the questions that were asked on one of our slides is which of the following do you feel should be the city's top 3 priorities? And out of the 10 that they provided, I think there was 3 or 4 of them that were the highest that committee drove on. One was road improvements, patterns and traffic. The other one was utility infrastructure, which included sewers, water lines, and flooding. Economic development, park and rec were our top 4, even though they only wanted 3 out of the committee. 4 of them were pretty hard hit from that steering committee. So that gave Envision a path to follow for our next committee meeting, which the mayor had already proposed those dates. And then we ended at 8:30.
Thank you. All the other committees have not met yet, so they will be on for the next meeting. Open to the public to speak. If anyone would like to speak, please come to the lectern and state your name and address for the record. Hearing none, we'll close this portion open to public speak. Moving on to legislation for council, is there a motion to amend the agenda to add 2024-R-32 onto the agenda?
Motion to amend to add resolution number 2024-R-32 to the agenda.
I'll second.
Motion made by Mrs. Moore, second by Mr. Lunder. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Thompson,
Aye.
Mrs. Moore,
Aye.
Mr. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Lunder,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson.
Aye. All right, and we'll start with resolution number 2024-R-32. If you please read it by its title.
Resolution number 2024-R-32, a resolution authorizing and directing the administrative director to send out a request for proposals for an updated city website and declaring an emergency.
Okay, discussion. I know you had some concerns over doing an RFP when you've had two already that you've looked at. Is there any harm to doing an RFP for the city?
Well, it takes anywhere from a minimum of 12 weeks to like say 30 weeks to implement this new website. For appropriations reasons, like you have to have the contract signed before the end of the year. Otherwise, we'll have to wait till we get it reappropriated for next year. Which would be another delay on top of the original delays we already had. The RFP is something, doesn't have a lot of reach. Like where we advertise and where the RFPs go, does not go very far. So getting like, national companies that deal with governments in many cities, like the ones that we have, it's like they probably wouldn't even pick that up on an RFP. Unless there's some additional portal that we have that I wasn't aware of. I mean, so, and, the administration is obviously the one that has to run it, has to update it, has to take care of it. So ultimately it would be our responsibility, but I did look at every single thing that you guys had in your last contract. I made sure that it covered everybody's needs that I saw. And if it didn't, I could ask for more. And it's relatively, I thought it was a lot less expensive than I anticipated it being from like the beginning of the year when we started this. So, and it doesn't have to be a 5-year commitment, it's just that 5 years locks in the rate without them being able to increase it, so I would recommend a 5-year. But they also, both of those companies, offer a, like a refresh, like a website refresh. One is free after the 4th year, and the other company is we charge you like $1,000 for a refresh. If you don't happen to like it the way it is, if you want to redo it. So I just wanted to just hurry up, and I wanted to actually try and execute it, so next year it's actually implemented. And I just felt like that would be like the quickest way to go about it, since we've been, we were talking about this way back in appropriations like February, so.
Yeah, we've been talking about a website for years now, so we've been complaining about it for a long time.
Just think the reach of, like a public notice in the News Herald, it's not gonna get us very far. And then, reading the RFP, I'm okay with all of us deciding. I just think Jacqueline's done the research on the two that are out there. And maybe we could look at these first and, we all decide we don't like either one of them, or maybe we like one better than the other. It's just in the RFP, we put that out there, if we look at how long it took to get answers from Envision and the other ones. It took us 2 or 3 months. In your RFP, it mentions, getting out there, and I didn't see, how long we have it out there. It looks like at our discretion to put it out there for 30 or 45 days, but then with the scoring system similar to what we did for the comprehensive plan, we're looking at another 2-3 months. So we're well into 2025 after, and nothing against what you guys have done so far, but I think working together, if we can all look at these two alternatives, which, I think are viable options. And then if we say, you know, we don't think either one fits what we think we need, then, you know, we can go out, but the Jacks, you know, the money's been appropriated, we have talked about it for a while. And, you know, when we thought we had somebody, we didn't use an RFP to do that. No, I'm not sure why we decided, okay, let's do an RFP this time. But I know, you know, I've given a couple suggestions, Jacqueline's, you know, actually met with these people and talked extensively about what they can do for us.
They will give you a demonstration too. if you want to spend.
Comments, questions?
We've been working on this website for 4+ years, 5+ years. I would like to maybe see I would like to see the demonstrations off of what we have. And delve into what they're offering and the cost of it, just to try to speed this up and get a website that's functional for our residents. I think they've waited long enough for this.
I would agree. You know, a demo and just to make sure that, like you said, you know, not that we're not trusting you, but just make sure apples are apples, you know, just, you know, to make sure that it could be used on a you know, a device other than a computer
Mhm.
from what we have right now, because it's horrible on a phone. So, but yeah. I would agree.
I agree too. Yeah. We need to keep.
Move it along.
We need to get moving, really.
Yeah. And it's more for the residents than it is for us.
Right.
It's for the residents.
Mr. Gray? Okay, if you could set up a meeting for us to see the demo.
Do I have to, like, can I set up a meeting or we have to wait till the next meeting before we announce?
Be a special meeting.
Just in terms of the public records law and the open meeting. Council is allowed, for example, to go on a bus trip together to tour the city. Okay, if they had that, you know, so they see everything at the same time. They're just not allowed to talk about, you know, what they're gonna do during that bus trip, you know, with other, you know, during that time. Okay, any public discussion or decision have to be made in an open council meeting.
Yep.
So, the reason I'm saying that is you don't have to do this demonstration at a public meeting, whether it's a council meeting or a committee meeting, if that makes it easier for people to get together. If you can do it at an open meeting, that would be fine also, but it's not an absolute requirement, as long as if it's not a public meeting, you don't make any decisions at that time or talk amongst yourself in terms of what you want to do, whether you want to approve it or pass it.
As long as we're talking about the workings of the internet and what they're offering.
You can ask questions. Now, the public, this is the least amount of public we've had in, I think, 3 years. We only have 3 people. You know, has had a big interest, and so and everybody thinks everybody's trying to hide something, and we're not. So it would be best if you could do the demonstration at some publicly announced committee meeting, so the public can see if they want to. So,
So if you want to schedule a meeting, whenever, yeah,
You guys can set your availability.
yeah, we can set you our availability and
I think the companies usually will bend whatever we need more than.
I'm okay with anything.
You
Yeah.
want to set it up like the community development committee, and then, I mean, if you're all here, you're all here.
I mean, we could do that. It just, unfortunately, we don't have the whole committee here to
Oh,
make that decision, so we would have to. We'll schedule a meeting at the end of the meeting here. Let me get a committee of the whole. I just love those. All right, we'll leave that on the agenda on second reading. We will move on to Ordinance number 2024-0-18, that's been referred to the ordinance committee again. So now we'll move on to ordinance number 2024-0-19. If you could please read that by its title.
Ordinance number 2024-0-19, second reading, an ordinance creating new chapter 895 lodging tax of the codified ordinances.
Okay, now we're on to the discussion that you wanted to have on this.
I like the concept. I know, I'm reading through it, very detailed. I just wonder how we go about enforcing that. How did, how did somebody come up with 3% as a cost benefit type analysis? I don't know where that. I don't know. In that whole ordinance. How we enforce it on a monthly basis. How we get, how many lodging, short-term rentals do we have in the city? How do we figure that out? How do people get around that? Do I have Chuck scour the internet every day for short-term rentals in Monroe Lake? I don't know, and, I'm asking, I guess, for suggestions on how you guys saw this before you brought it to us. How did you see us executing this, and then also the short-term rentals?
I want to ban short-term rentals, so I'll let the other people talk. That's you guys. I'm all for banning them, so. As I said, multiple times.
I might be able to help with that.
Okay.
I worked with Councilperson Long on this. The committee used the Madison Village ordinances for lodging tax and also the zoning change. Most of what's in there is based on the Madison Village. I believe, I'm not 100% sure on this, I believe that the county also collects. Dale Langman, we're still on council, we know the answer right away to this, because he used to be in charge of it. But I believe that the county already collects a short-term, a lodging tax on short-term rentals. And I believe that the county has started to improve their functionality. I think they bought a program that scours or searches the internet for short-term rentals on the different rental sites. And then they contact those people, tell them that they owe taxes, and there's public information that would be made available to us. My guess is that we could get the county representative in, who is in charge of that program, or the administration could just, talk to them. I learned about this program because I think the county gave one of their presentations about this, maybe a township, group meeting. My guess is they're willing to, to educate government and entities like us about what they can do in order to do that. The 3%, I think, is and I don't remember this off the top of my head, but I know that that's the Benner rate. It's also Madison Village rate, and pretty much everybody else. Because I think it's that rate that's prescribed in the statute, that authorizes this to be done. It's the maximum rate that passed at this level. Is what I think.
And the budget office. He told me that the villages are handled by the county. We have a special relationship with the villages, so the county can handle theirs, but they don't have any program for municipalities. handle ours. You said that Geauga County has quite a few because they have the wineries and stuff like that, but they had invested in a software tracker that alerts them to the short-term rentals. Now, since Lake County found out about that, they also already purchased a software tracker, but it's not up and running yet. It's not, and they also want to use it for like 6 months to a year before they offer it to municipalities, just to see how it's working for them on their end. So they do plan on having a tax collection in the near future, which hopefully we'd be able to sign on to, which would be less burden for us here.
Mhm.
I also said, asked a few questions about enforcement, even if it was through the county. So even if all short-term rentals, the city would verify that they were a short-term rental, you have like they post on the internet, but you have no way to prove that they actually booked the room. Like they could say, oh, nobody booked it this month, and there would be no way, just because they advertise doesn't mean that it's booked. And there's no way to enforce that. The only way you have to be able to enforce that is if we either just knew somehow that they did and you subpoenaed them and took them to court and spent all that time and money doing that and subpoenaed all like Verbo and all of the advertising platforms to verify that they booked it that week. Or if we did an audit, but as a city, like we don't really have the resources to do personal audits. I don't even know if like legally we have that authority. So enforcing this is almost like it's just gonna be free will.
Again, I'm for banning, but again.
And the record keeping too, if you look at the way it, you know, as Jim said, the Madison Village, you know, they have hotels there, they really built up. But then in our legislation, you know, it talks about the short-term landlord, I guess you would call it, has to keep records for 4 years. If they, you know, if they don't do something, we can fine them. But to Jacqueline's point, if you don't know when they're booking or, I don't know how we could go about every month getting a hold of somebody. And if the county's doing it, you know, I don't know if you look at that as, you know, double taxation.
I think the county taxes on top of 3%.
Right. What Mr. Lyons was talking about, I read with that article that you were just described. And what Jacqueline said, that it is a test right now, and they want to put it in place in 2025 if it works. But I did read about what you just said.
I thought, I don't mean to speak for the committee, but just general. There was some push by many cities, short-term rental regulation. Because there have been landlords, operations that have caused problems in the neighborhood. And this puts pretty specific standards that you have to meet in order to get it. And it's any rule that council passes, it's always a matter of enforcement. City income tax. My guess is there aren't many because we are here in Banner on the Lake, but in other cities, there are probably many city income tax avoiders up there. You don't catch them all, no question. But there are also many people who try to follow the law that would bring in revenue. Nothing's ever perfect when you try to regulate.
One factor, the cost of labor. And how much time it's gonna take from shop myself. That's why we do cost management analysis, supposed to shoot map out the processes, whether it's done, how many hours it's gonna take, how do you enforce it, you have to do collections. Not only do you have to do the invoicing and collections, and then that's just for the tax collection itself, would take a lot of effort. Then you have the other, I know we didn't cheap it yet, but the other one kind of like hand in hand with it. And right now, we don't have an inspector that can go inside people's houses, so we couldn't even sign off on the fact that they had a detector. Well, how do we sign off that they have a smoke detector in every room? We're not in.
Well, now, I gotta stop you. in order to do a short-term rental under this, they have to allow inspection, because if you do not have a right, okay, to run there, you do have a right to run your private home, and that's why we can't go inside private homes for inspection without permission. Okay, but if there was a short-term rental that was followed all the rules and they wouldn't let us in, then that's a reason in order to suspend or revoke that license.
You need insurance if you're gonna do it in term and hospital.
Pardon me?
You need insurance.
I guess you need insurance for everything. We'd have to call our insurance agent to make sure that we have the proper coverage. But my guess is we have the proper coverage now because other communities do this. The inspection isn't an intrusive inspection in terms of, making sure that the pipes, are a certain kind. I mean, there are certain things like smoke detectors, so that if there is an incident in there, and there is an irresponsible person who's running those operations, okay, there is some way to regulate it, okay, over and above what we have now. And I agree that anytime you put an inspection regimen in, it can be expensive at the administrative level. And so you can charge fees, okay, in terms of the permit process that relate to, that enforcement type situation. And hopefully, if the taxes are paid and, there's 12 of these, and they bring in X $1,000 in a year, maybe those fees can be kept low, but we are allowed to charge fees, and we do charge fees, okay, that are related to work that we perform. And issuing permits is something that we can charge for under, everybody's code.
So I'll turn this around. How would the administration handle short-term rentals? As we know they exist, should we just ignore them? Should we just allow them? What would you guys propose to do?
All of Geauga County has their cities sign on through the county, and the county manages their short-term rental. So I would.
Well, I don't know what that means. Okay, Geauga County doesn't have the authority. Okay, they have the authority to tax, but they don't have the authority, to tell cities or villages, townships, where a short-term rental could be located. They have to put it standing. Pardon me?
They are the ones that own the software.
The software tracker only identifies units, okay, that are short-term rentals. It doesn't have anything to do with zoning. Okay, so Geauga County is performing a service, to enhance their lodging tax collection, and is sharing that evidently, with the villages and townships. So, but the tracker does not regulate those operations.
A question. So these are rentals. We already have registered rentals in the city.
Yes.
Do these fall under registered rentals to where they should already be on our radar? And instead of them being leases, they're long-term rentals, they're just short-term rentals.
We would have to either add something to the current rental registration that we have, or have a whole different form to send out to everybody.
And then my other thing was, when I was reading the legislation, there was two ways of doing the collection. Monthly was if they had a hotel or a motel or something like that. And for short-term rentals, it was quarterly reporting. Is what I read in the legislation.
Even then, you still have to rely on that person telling you how many rentals they have.
Well, there's a lot of things that we rely on people to accurately self-report.
Like registering in the first place for rentals, which we know people aren't doing now, so
Recording the number of bathrooms.
that too.
I think, with the short-term rentals, having planning and zoning looking at it. Because I think the intent of the legislation is to have almost issue a conditional use permit for each one of those. I'm okay with that idea, because I think that would, I don't know if it's gonna flush out everybody, but at least getting that word out there that this is how it's gonna work, could help us. And then, you know, some type of research, you know, on the internet, you know, Airbnb, VRBO, you know, that Chuck may be able to do, could lead us to these people saying, hey, you know what? We see you have an ad out there. You need to come into planning and zoning and get your permit to do this. Well, I'm okay with that.
I mean, because otherwise, when the county gets the software working, you guys could tie into that and get that information that way and not have to go through the convoluted way of trying to figure out who has one. Anybody else? Hearing none, this will go into third reading. Ordinance number 2024-0-20 has been referred to the Planning and Zoning Committee. It'll stay on second reading right now. Ordinance number 2024-0-21. Is there a motion to amend as presented? As we have a new draft of that with one added line to it.
I'll make a motion to amend ordinance 2024-0-21 as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Moore, seconded by Mr. Lunder. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Thompson.
Aye.
Mrs. Moore,
Aye.
Mr. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Lunder,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson.
Aye. Is there any discussion on this?
This is to accept grants and be able to use those funds to purchase things. Motion to suspend.
Motion made by Mrs. Moore, seconded by Mr. Lunder on suspension of the rules. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Thompson.
Aye.
Mrs. Moore,
Aye.
Mr. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Lunder,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson.
Aye.
Motion for passage.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Lunder, seconded by Mrs. Moore for passage. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Thompson.
Aye.
Mrs. Moore,
Aye.
Mr. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Lunder,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson.
Aye. Is there any old business tonight?
Sorry, it was a fly. I thought it was B.
Okay, new business tonight. You wanted to know whether we're having a meeting on Christmas Eve.
I will make a motion that we not have a meeting on Christmas Eve.
Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Moore, second by Mrs. Thompson, to not have a meeting on Christmas Eve. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Thompson.
Aye.
Mrs. Moore,
Aye.
Mr. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Lunder,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson.
No. Okay, other new business tonight. Okay. Move on to open to the public to speak. If you'd like to speak, please come to the lectern, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, members of the council and the administration. My name is Paul Morris, in case you forgot me already. I live at 7592 Pinehurst Drive, Mentor Lake. I want to speak about the centennial celebration, which so far is, to me, has been an embarrassment to our city. There was a big event planned out here for the kids that's all it seemed to be. I know the weather was kind of iffy that day, because we had our car show that day, they had great attendance. We all had wonderful weather. But as I heard today, there's a lot of hot dogs that got went to waste. That's a terrible waste of money, unless it was all donated. But then you turn around and you're having a celebration at the yacht club. It's $72 a plate. How many of our residents do you think can afford to go to that event? I'll bet there's not gonna be a whole lot of people that can. After all, Councilwoman Thompson and Jeannie Wong and a bunch of you stood out here and handed out stuff to people that needed it. Food that they needed, because we just lost a lot of food due to the power outage. And yet you're asking them to spend $72 a plate to go to the yacht club and listen to a presentation by the library and by the Historical Society, I believe. Why couldn't they have been brought in here during that family event that they tried to pull, and it was more like a kid's circus than anything? Not just embarrassed. You folks, not just council, but Parks and Rec, have totally turned their back on the majority of our residents. Shame on you. Thank you.
Anyone else? Hearing now, we'll close this portion of public speak. Announcements and settings of meetings. All right, we're gonna have a committee of the whole meeting. Get the calendar up. Oh, good. What do we have available calendar wise?
For what month? Oh, actually, we're assuming.
God, assuming, yeah, it's probably not gonna happen this week, so next week,
Second, fourth,
we're not doing it Friday.
second,
Second,
I'm free.
what about the week after that, just
Wednesday, the 9th or Thursday, the 10th.
what do you guys think? Second, 9th or 10th?
Of October.
Would say the seventh.
So it's Wednesday or Thursday?
Because otherwise we would have the council meeting and then a meeting and a meeting.
Yeah, I like the
Back to
second.
back.
Yeah, and we were thinking too, if we had both vendors in, just give them an hour each. Just do it, all, if that would.
So second,
What time?
okay, what time do we wanna do?
I think if we're gonna do it for an hour each, I think we start at 6.
6?
Six. On the side.
All right, committee whole meeting. Wednesday, October 2nd, 6 P.M. The website vendors. Okay, other meetings, we have Parks and Rec, Thursday, September 26th, 2024 at 6:30 P.M. Ordinance Committee, Tuesday, October 1st, 6:30 P.M. Zoning Committee, Thursday, October 3rd, 6:15 P.M. Planning and Zoning, Monday, October 7th, 6 P.M. We also have the regular meeting of council, October 8th, 7 P.M. Next regular agenda meeting, October 3rd at 6 P.M. Any other meetings?
Agenda.
I did that one.
I thought it.
No, I did that one second.
Does the service committee need to meet to discuss the under $300 for the petty cash?
Yes.
Then would you wanna do it on October 3rd, right after the zoning meeting?
We'll have to probably go somewhere else. Cause we have to be out here by 7:30.
Is that what it was?
It's reserved.
Yeah, that was reserved that night.
Tomorrow's free.
He's not here.
Oh, the
Um,
30th or the 2nd is free.
You wanna do the 3rd at 6 o'clock for service?
I'll go for that. Well, that's agenda meeting too, so.
Well, and it's a
Fine.
zoning, on the 3rd is zoning at 6:15.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, if you want to do it during the agenda, I can do that. That's,
We can do it at 6 o'clock.
That's service.
Okay, anything else?
Second,
Motion made by Mr. Gray, second by Mrs. Thompson for adjournment. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Thompson.
aye.
Mrs. Moore.
Aye.
Mr. Gray.
Aye.
Mr. Lunder.
all right.
Mr. Johnson.
Aye, we are adjourned.